The Chargers had their biggest test of the season on Monday Night Football against the Ravens, and not only did they lose, but frankly, they just got bullied.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 9 seasons, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers for making us your first listen, especially after such a disappointing, tough loss to swallow. We appreciate you guys now more than ever. To make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, man, that's a tough one to swallow.
It really is, yeah. I mean, the Chargers get off to a hot start. Everything looks really, really good on Monday Night Football, and then the Ravens just decided to give the ball to Derrick Henry, and that completely changed kind of the trajectory of the game for the Chargers. And at the end of the day, they kind of out-physicaled the Chargers and beat them up most of the night.
Yeah, I mean, it did feel like they got bullied a little bit. And I mean, we know that Jim Harbaugh's teams pride themselves in being physical, but just felt like they didn't really have the horsepower to handle it on either side of the football. And the Ravens have been playing that brand of football for a lot longer and a lot more consistently. But make sure you guys check out FanDuel, because you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. David, it's not just the loss, it's how you lose, right? I think, which is the most disappointing part of this one, because I think me and you both felt going into this, it's like, hey, if the Chargers lose to a really good team, sometimes it can be as simple as that. I think the jarring kind of eye-opening part of this loss specifically was just the way that they lost, right? The way that they got bullied. And the Chargers, it's not like this is the first game their run defense has struggled, but a lot of times they were good enough to not really have it be a huge issue, right? They've won 4 games in a row. They've had some really bad run defense games in there, but they were good enough to overcome it until they ran into a team that was willing to do it and do it over and over and over again, and to the tune of Derrick Henry running all over them. 24 carries, 140 yards, 5.8 yards per carry. Overall, 37 carries for 212 yards and 2 touchdowns. A Jim Harbaugh team had never allowed 200 rushing yards in a game. And it just sucks to see them kind of get out-physical, manhandled the way that they did. I mean, they couldn't get a stop when they needed it. Every time they had a 4th and short, right? 3 different 4th and 1s that could have got them off the field. Can't get off the field on any of them. And it just sucked to watch it go down the way that it did.
Yeah, the Chargers got beat up after the first couple of drives. You know, the Chargers had some success because the Ravens were, really kind of throwing the football first and kind of running it,
Yeah, I mean, they had that bad penalty too, right? I mean, They got a little lucky earlier. The leg whip penalty kind of threw them out of their game, but it did seem like they had a solid game plan until they didn't.
Yeah, until they didn't, exactly. And that's when, the Ravens said, oh, well, let me just go ahead and hand the ball off to Derrick Henry over and over and over. And the Chargers, they surrendered the edge. They missed tackles. They couldn't get him on the ground. When they did get into 3rd and long situations, they were not able to get off the football field, which was absolutely brutal. It's really, really hard. It's really demoralizing when you do everything you're supposed to do to get a team in the 3rd and long situation and 4th down situation, and you can't get them off the football field. It's backbreaking. It hurts your momentum, hurts your mental too, because you're like, man, what do I got to do to get these guys off the field? And it must have felt like a really long night for the Chargers defense, because they were going backwards pretty much the entire night.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what makes this Ravens offense so difficult, because, I mean, Lamar Jackson can light you up through the air. He didn't really need to in this game, but they could just pound the rock, and if you're going to allow 5.8 yards per carry, they're just going to keep continuing to do it. And it wasn't just the defense by any means. I mean, I was surprised by the Chargers coming out hot with their rushing attack offensively, but the second half, they got out physical at the line of scrimmage. The interior of the offensive line became a much bigger problem. Penalties started racking up because they were getting beat and having to hold. They just got out physical. They got outplayed in the trenches. They got bullied by John Harbaugh and the Ravens. And really just the disappointing part is just you miss such an opportunity to have that we have arrived moment, because say what you will about the 7-3 record going into it, the Chargers didn't have a statement win on their resume. They just didn't. The teams that they beat were bad. The only 500 team that was better than 500 this season was the Broncos. And that's not one that is going to prove to anyone that, hey, you're a for real team, right? Nobody's taking that and saying, okay, yeah, you're one of the best, because this Ravens team went and blew the Broncos out when they played them. But after going up 10 points in this game, the Chargers were outscored 30-9 until they ended up getting that garbage touchdown late in the game, which doesn't really count for much, right? Like that it didn't really feel like, a real touchdown or anything that you can really salvage. This game wasn't as close as the final score would tell you, but it also just kind of felt like they were outclassed a little bit, David. It didn't feel like they really had enough talent on either side of the ball that if they came up against this Baltimore Ravens team, or really any of the big AFC teams, like if you get any of the Ravens or the Chiefs or the Bills on your best night, I don't know if they can keep up. And I think that was kind of the hard pill to swallow in this one, was just like, hey, the Chargers came out good, seemed to have a good game plan, but at the end, they didn't have enough to keep up on either side of the football.
Yeah, I mean, they had some steam early, when they get off to the big lead, but they just didn't have enough steam to be able to push it through for 4 quarters. And I think that's the difference here. And yes, it is deflating. It is disappointing when you have an opportunity to make a statement to, say, hey, we can go beat a good team. We can, assert ourselves and make a statement. Unfortunately, they were not able to do that tonight. And, it's just another opportunity missed for the Chargers to, say that, hey, I'm a for real threat. I'm here to meet the moment. They still, unfortunately, with this game included, have not been able to meet the moment. So unfortunately, we don't have any other recourse but to say that this Chargers team isn't ready to compete at that level yet, because they have not proven that they have been able to do so.
Yeah, I just think that you kind of saw the gap a little bit. And I know the Ravens were 7-4 going into this one. They have some fluky losses, but that's a good team, man. And I said going into it that I thought it was the best team that they were going to play this season when you're just talking about the total talent. And they were missing some of their big dogs, just like the Chargers were as well. So feel bad for the great fan turnout that came out again to SoFi Stadium, to have them kind of see the Chargers not be able to really stay close and make it a game late. That sucks, right? Because the Chargers fans have done such a great job at getting out there and giving this team a home field advantage. And I think what you saw in this game, frankly, was just the Chargers' flaws getting exposed. Like all of their biggest flaws, all of the things that kind of worried us throughout the season, but they were able to overcome versus the bad teams, really got put under the spotlight in this one. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that is, they aren't there yet in a lot of those ways. Now, they can still improve. This team isn't a finished product, even with the roster that they have right now. It doesn't mean that they can't get better and potentially make the playoffs and go for a run. And I think that's an important thing to keep in context here, because we're going to get into it, right? There were several key turning points in this game on both sides of the football where the Chargers could have turned this thing into a game, and it could have been really close. Obviously, the officiating we're going to talk about as well. Several plays that should have gone the Chargers' way that didn't, that really kind of changed the way the game was going and really helped the Ravens kind of bury them late in this game. But I think as far as the big picture goes, like this team is still ahead of schedule, right? This is a team that got put in a terrible salary cap situation, and a team that got 5 wins last year that had to sign a bunch of one-year deals and veteran minimum deals to try to put this team together and build a roster. It's not where it needs to get yet. And I think the other great thing is hey, you have a game in Kansas City. Not that I'm looking over, overlooking the Falcons at all. But if you want a statement win in the AFC, you got to give him an Arrowhead in a couple of weeks where you can prove it then.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And yeah, you're not going to overlook any opponent. Obviously, the Falcons are, they got some weapons on that football team. They can show up and definitely, pick up a win against the Chargers. But the Chargers do have that kind of big opportunity on that big stage. That's going to be another primetime game for the Chargers. And yeah, I think that's the biggest test that's remaining left on the schedule. That's their kind of last real regular season moment to be able to say, I am here. I am legitimate. I am a team that needs to be worried about. You have to game plan for me. You have to worry about me. That's the type of win that you need to have in order to be able to instill that fear into those opponents that you might be able to, or you might be playing in the postseason.
Yeah, and I just think when you look at this team and you look at, hey, where have the big wins for this team been even pre-Jim Harbaugh era? Like now we're going on almost 2 years of, since the Chargers have beat a real legitimate top of the AFC type of team. I mean, it might even be 2021 in Kansas City when the Chargers took down the Chiefs. Like that might be where you'd have to look at when you're looking for that signature win. But hey, I mean, the goal I think hasn't changed, right? With this team, we knew they were flawed. We didn't think they were going to win the AFC West. And the goal has always been this team could be a playoff team get to the playoffs, and see what happens. But it doesn't make this loss any less disappointing. And that's why I want to talk about the offense, because I thought they really underwhelmed with a great matchup for Justin Herbert. And man, Quentin Johnston, after a season, off season worth of trying to build that goodwill back, felt like it all went away on one play. So we have to talk about that and much more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys that there is a place, especially in the holiday season, where you want to stay connected with people who are far away. And as much as as older I've gotten, the family spreads out. It's harder to see everyone as much as you'd like to. And if you're missing someone this holiday season and want them to be part of your festivities from afar, I have something that's perfect for you. The perfect gift. Skylight Frame is a touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. And new photos you can get straight from your phone from anywhere, and it only takes a tap of your phone. Send a new photo to that frame from across the country. I know for me, very easy. Skylight Frames for everyone. Pictures of little Dylan in there, and I can't go wrong with that. I mean, that's a reason that over a million happy customers, thousands of 5-star reviews have come in for Skylight Frames, and they're available in over 30 countries and recommended by the Today Show, Forbes, New York Mag, and so many more. And it's the fastest and easiest way to keep up with your loved ones and keep them in the loop, so they'll feel so much more connected to you and your family. And now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, you can get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NFL. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/NFL to get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/NFL. I also need to tell you guys about FanDuel, because you can get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats for your live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Very, very interested to see where this line is next week in Atlanta against a very, very beatable Falcons team that just got blown out by the Broncos not too long ago, a team that the Chargers beat. But that only works so far as the transitive properties go. I can't wait to see that. But for now, I'm going to be going basketball. I'm looking at the Lakers plus 3.5 tonight against the Suns is where my action is going. All you have to do, if you guys want to get on the action, visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, David, well, we have to talk about both sides of the football, because I think there are so many places on each side of the football where you can look at as to why this team lost this game in the way that they did on Monday Night Football against the Ravens. But I do want to talk about the offense, because we did talk about the defense's kind of biggest flaw of Derrick Henry running all over them, right?
Yeah.
But it did feel like, even if that hadn't happened or didn't happen the way it did, like we knew the Ravens were going to be able to put up points. And the bigger question was, could the Chargers keep up? And the great news was Justin Herbert had been on fire. The Ravens had one of the worst pass defenses in the league. That's not the way it played out. And that was the underwhelming thing, I think, from the Chargers offense. Overall, Justin Herbert, 21 of 36 for 218 yards, no passing touchdowns, did get in on the ground. But it was what I was afraid of. Like, once they got behind, they really showed how much they struggled playing for behind. And in those, you have 5 scoring drives in this game, but you have to settle for 3 field goals against the top teams. That's what's going to kill you. It also felt like Justin Herbert kind of started going bombs away when they got down a little bit, maybe a little bit too early, right, to be kind of going all or nothing. Josh Palmer had some moments, but really misplayed, in my opinion, a couple of deep balls. And it still felt like the receivers not named Lad McConkey really struggled to separate against a secondary that has been terrible in 2024. I think these are all big parts of the reasons the Chargers lost. I think the other part of it, you came out against the second best rush defense in the NFL and had 76 yards in the first half. You were on pace for $150. J.K. Dobbins goes down. The Chargers get down in the game. And all of a sudden you have 7 rushing yards in the second half. That's not going to do it against these good teams. It's just not. If they know you're passing, if you're putting your quarterback in with a flawed offensive line in pass situations every single down, it's going to come back and backfire. And that was kind of the biggest frustrations that I had with the Chargers offense.
Yeah, whenever you go up against these offenses like the Baltimore Ravens, you can't be trading field goals for touchdowns. You just can't do it. I mean, if you do, you're going to end up in a situation where it's 30-16 with, a few minutes left in the ball game. And that's what it is against the Bengals and against the Ravens and the offenses that can score in a hurry. They have confidence. They're that, if they go down, they can hurt you either way. They can run the ball and pick up chunks, and they can throw the ball and they can pick up big plays in that fashion as well. And so I think that, after they went down early, there was no panic for them. They just, went in, got in the end zone, and then did it again and again and again. That's basically what happened with the Baltimore Ravens, and they didn't stop till the clock hit triple zeros, and the Chargers were trying to figure out what the hell was going, what the hell happened in this football game, because the Ravens just dictated the pace. They told, and they basically showed everybody what they wanted to do, and they went out there and executed at a much higher level than the Chargers, unfortunately, in this football game.
Yeah, and there were a couple huge turning points, like I alluded to earlier, where this game really could have changed, right? And this is where it started. I mean, the Chargers down by 7 in the fourth quarter. They got hosed. Straight up, just terrible, terrible call. Trey Pipkins gets a phantom holding call, which wipes out a defensive pass interference, which would have given them a first down. New set of sticks, the whole thing. Maybe they get something going. They're only down 7 at that point in the fourth quarter. It was not a hold. Justin Herbert got out of the pocket a little bit. Trey Pipkins immediately let the guy go. They wipe it out. What happens on the exact next play? Quentin Johnston drops a pass. That's an easy first down. Easy throw and catch. Plenty of room to run. Getting him in the positions for him to succeed, right? Little drag route. Something that's easy to do. Use your after the catch abilities. He drops it. And then after that, Chargers go down by 14. Still in the game, though. Plenty of time to come back. Josh Palmer gets interfered with on a 3rd down and 18. The refs pick up the flag. I already told you I thought Josh Palmer misplayed a couple of balls. He eased up on that play and like mistimed his jump so awfully that I think it led to them picking the flag up. That being said, don't pick that flag up. Like, the guy still had a hand inside of his collar. He was trying to turn to go get the ball. It was just a really bad turn of events. And then the Chargers on 3rd and 18, down 14, time running out, decide not to go for it on 4th and 18 after their defense had allowed 5 consecutive scoring drives. Drop early in the game by Jalen Reagor. Herbie missing Josh Palmer to go for a deep shot to Quentin Johnston. A lot of missed opportunities that could make this a much better looking game offensively, but those two in the second half are what got them buried, what led to them not being able to stay in this game.
That holding call was absolute garbage. I cannot believe that they made that call. Like, how? Like, even if you did see some kind of call there, it didn't have any impact on the game or that play. I hate that. I hate when the refs try to change the outcome of the games. But the Quentin Johnston miscatch, unfortunately, it wasn't just that. It was that play right there, and you can immediately see the impact of that drop on the 3 subsequent drops that happened after that. That's like, it was a direct result of that. You can see, like, visually see the confidence was gone. It had left him. And it sucks when that happens, because they're still going to need Quentin Johnston in the, later on in the season. He's going to be called upon again. And, Justin Herbert's going to have to get him the ball, and Quentin's going to have to go catch it. It sucks when these moments happen, because, it really can overshadow all of the, work that he has done up to this point to make himself into a better receiver than he was last year. But when you make bad drops like that play could have gone for 50, 60. Like, there's nothing but green grass in front of him. He really could have, jumped on a lane and took off. But that just didn't happen. And it, because he dropped that ball, it caused the lack of confidence and the, subsequent drops after that.
Yeah, and he'd gone up until this point this season. I mean, his 2023 season, when you look back at it, the first thing you think of are the drops, right? Yeah. And he had a really impressive training camp, and I remember it distinctly. There was one day where he, dropped the first 5 balls that came his way, and it was just, atrocious. And we knew it was a problem coming out of college, but it is for a lot of receivers who end up figuring it out, right? And then when you look at the season, there's a play against the Packers, right, that potentially cost them that game last year, and several other really key moment drops that he had. He had gone this entire season without one like that, without one that was so brutal, where it's just perfect pass in your hands, room to run, first down, keeps you in the game. You're down by 7. It's very much a game.
Yeah.
But it was 3 bad drops. Right. And I put it on Twitter, I can feel his confidence leaking through my TV. And Justin Herbert, to his credit, man, ultimate teammate, tried to go back to him, tried to rebuild that confidence, trying to get it out of his head quickly. Because if he catches the next one, maybe he can bounce back.
Yeah.
He couldn't. And it got worse and worse. I mean, one of the plays, I think he might have slipped a little bit, but it just looked like he totally gave up and just like had his head down going towards the sideline. Didn't even make a play on the football. Just a total, didn't even get his hands on it. But he had one on the sideline, just dropped it. One on the other sideline, just straight up dropped it. And like it felt like it took an entire offseason. It took a new wide receiver coach in Sanjay Lal to come help him build his confidence back and help him turn into a better receiver, which he has been. But it felt like it reverted all back to 2023 as soon as that first drop happened. And like you said, they're going to need him on buy or sell tomorrow. Maybe that's one of the overreactions or storylines, but like maybe it's time to give somebody else a chance too. That's more fit for those, what they're trying to use him like, because he had a couple of drag routes and stuff where he did, you would like to see him in those situations, but more like throwing it just down to him down the sideline. He doesn't know how to high point the football. He doesn't fight through contact to make catches. He doesn't go back through the defensive backs' bodies to either draw a foul or go up over him to go get the ball. It's not what his strength is. Last week, 2 catches on 8 targets, had the nice touchdown. That's great. Tonight, 0 for 5, 5 targets, 0 catches, 3 drops. It's not good enough, man. I feel bad. Like I truly do. You feel bad for him because you're watching it in real time. Yeah. All the confidence leaving him. Like, this is the NFL though. It doesn't slow down for anybody. And when DJ Chark is a healthy scratch and you have a dude out there doing that in prime time, something's got to change. And we'll talk about that tomorrow. But I do need to talk about this defense. For the second consecutive week, Jesse Minter's defense faces a high-powered offense and gives up more points than they have all season long. So we're going to talk about that and much more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about Hillsdale College because history, economics, the great works of literature, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution. Did you study these things in school? Probably not. Or even if you did, maybe it's time for a refresher. Time and technology have changed a lot of things, but they have not changed the basic fundamental truths about the world and our place in it. Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story and Land of Hope, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, and so much more. And all of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever you want and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lecture. However you want to do it, you can do it through Hillsdale College, and all you have to do is go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. All right, David, well, it's time to talk about the Chargers defense. Jesse Minter's group, who went into even this game, leading the NFL with scoring defense, right, came into this one and allowed the most points that they have all season long. It was disappointing, but it was really concerning, I think, obviously, the fact that they got bullied, which we talked about, but also just another, last week you have 3 touchdowns in a row that the Bengals get like that. Yeah. This week, 5 consecutive scoring drives for the Baltimore Ravens. So we have to get into it. Thank you guys, though, especially on a night like tonight, for making us your first listen. If you need a second listen, check out the new slate at Locked On NFL. 2 shows a day. Tyler the Madman rolling in the morning. My boy Tony Wiggins in the barbershop later on, bringing on the experts that cover their team every day on the Locked On Podcast Network. David, Jesse Minter, man, another week. It's not even like it sounds like I'm blaming Jesse Minter, but it's really just about the defense as a whole and them going up against good offenses, because I brought it up. Daniel Popper brought it up to Jim Harbaugh. It wasn't popular, but the main kind of sentiment was, you haven't really played any good quarterbacks. You haven't really played many good offenses. What's going to happen when you play the good teams? Well, we saw it back-to-back weeks, David, and once again, the Chargers defense really left a lot to be desired.
Yeah, I mean, they started off hot, forcing 2 punts, but they didn't force another punt until there was 3 minutes and 14 seconds left in the game. That's right there.
Yeah, and the Ravens were already up by 2 touchdowns. Yeah,
exactly. That's the reason why the Chargers lost the game. They just could not get off the field. I talked about it earlier. Their inability to get off the field on 3rd downs, couldn't get off the field at all on 4th downs. They allowed 3 conversions on 3 attempts, which was a huge part of the Ravens being ultra aggressive and staying on the football field and really, churning out those drives. But they couldn't stop the run. They, had several missed tackles. They couldn't get pressure on the quarterback. They only got 1 sack, and that was by Derwin James. Other than that, Lamar Jackson was able to kind of do what he wanted back there. And, like you said earlier, he didn't really have to do much. He didn't have to throw the ball. He had the one kind of nice deep pass to Bateman for the touchdown. But besides that, it was a throw to Zay Flowers. And, a lot of handoffs. That's pretty much what it was. And the thing is the Chargers knew that the Ravens were wanting to run the ball. I mean, they didn't hide it. They just couldn't stop it. And that's another week against a premier offense, a premier quarterback that, the Chargers defense is not able to be as dominant as they were against lesser competition. So those questions are going to continue to arise that are going to be uncomfortable. Is this Chargers defense for real? Can we trust them? Is the points per game allowed an empty stat? All of these are going to start getting louder and louder until you have a performance that shuts them up.
And to be fair to Jesse Minter, right? Like, there are very talented players on this defense. They're obviously missing some guys. Like Cam Hart has become a crucial part of this defense, and he wasn't able to be out there. You have a limited version of Khalil Mack, and you're missing Denzel Perryman, who we'll talk about, and they really missed him in this one. But, I mean, I think the hard thing is like, it's not like I expected them to hold the Ravens to 10 points. I didn't, right? I think what you're expecting is for this defense, which has been good all year, to hold them to less than their season average, to do better against them than the average defense would. And for the second consecutive week, you couldn't do that, right? The Bengals went into that game last week averaging how many points per game? 27 points per game. How many did they score? They scored 27.
Yeah.
Ravens going into this one averaged 30.4 points per game. What did they score in this game? 30. They scored 30 points, right? You're not doing any more against them than what the average team is doing, or even, compared to what some of the bad teams have done against them. So I think that's the hard thing, right? Couldn't corral Lamar Jackson, and it didn't turn into a ton of rushing yards, right? He only had 15 rushing yards in this game. But a lot of plays, him escaping a sack, him dumping it off, and that turning into a 15-yard play. Like, that happened over and over and over again. Several third and longs converted, 8 for 15 overall. And the big plays are really concerning, David. Another game allowing huge plays. A lot of 40-yard touchdown to Rashad Bateman. A lot of 51-yard touchdown to Justice Hill. You let the Ravens take the lead, and then you let them also bury you at the same time, right? You gave up the lead at the end of the first half, and then you gave up the big touchdown at the end that kind of put this game away.
Yep, they sure did. I mean, they just had no answers for that Ravens offense. The Ravens were kind of doing what they wanted, and unfortunately, at the same time as the defense not having the answers to that test, the offense didn't have any answers either, and that's what made it, the end of the type of game that it ultimately became.
The offense needed the defense to bail them out a little bit in this game and to pick up the slack. And against the Bengals at the end of that game, when the Chargers offense couldn't come through late, the Chargers defense gave them another chance, and we gave them their flowers, and we shouted their praises even after they gave up, 21 points and a heartbeat. We sung their praises, right?
Yeah.
This week, they couldn't. They couldn't get the offense that extra possession that they needed to really stay in it, maybe to recapture the lead and change the complexion of this game. They couldn't do it. And there was a lot of turning points. For me, it was the first half, a lot of it, right? The Chargers don't challenge that Mark Andrews catch. That one's going to bother me for a while because one-handed catch on the sideline.
He was juggling it while he was going out of bounds. Like,
the ball's moving. And I think Jim Harbaugh's scarred because he's had a couple of bad challenges this year. But the thing is it's about when you do it. That's a 3rd and 5. If they don't get that, I understand they went for it 3 times on 4th down. They never went for it on 4th down when it was more than 1 yard, right? They never did. It would have been 4th and 5 in field goal range. I almost guarantee Justin Tucker kicks that field goal if they challenge it and it's overturned. Maybe they don't, right? But in that moment, when you're up by 10 and you have a chance to kind of stifle a drive where they're running all over you.
I'm with you.
You do that challenge right there because that was a turning point in the game. The Ravens offense was starting to click. You could have nipped it in the bud potentially and cut out some momentum, maybe even went down and scored a touchdown to take a 17-3 lead. That's how much it can swing, man. That's how much it can swing. And then the other one in the first half, Christian Fulton, bro. I love him. He's been really good. He's been a revelation. He's been one of the best value contracts in the league. That end of the half in an end of half situation, in a 2-minute situation, inexcusable. PI to get the Ravens into plus territory, right?
Yeah.
Double move just gets him. I can wash my hands of that, right? The next play, you get another defensive pass interference, and the only reason it's not going to go in the history books as a pass interference is because you gave up a 40-yard touchdown right before the half to Rashad Bateman with 24 seconds left. Just not getting your head around. If you get your head around, it's a pick. Also had a chance to take more points off the board from the Ravens, had a chance for a pick in the back of the end zone, couldn't bring it down. But they could have held the Ravens to 3 points or less in the first half if they hold up either of those, right? Because the other thing was, on that second one, you had a 4th and 1. The Ravens were on their 16-yard line. 2 minutes left in the first half.
Yeah.
16-yard line. Automatic points for your offense. You can't get off the field. And to me, those were the turning points, and the Chargers just never could recover.
No, they absolutely could not. And it just didn't matter. I mean, when they needed their defense to get them a stop, when they needed to get a turnover, when they needed a game-changing play, whether it was offense or defense, they were not able to provide it. They got 1 sack in this game, like I mentioned. They had no turnovers created in this game at all. They didn't really have any explosive passing plays or running plays in this game on offense. They were, just very watered down, very muted. I mean, and unfortunately, Justin Herbert was not superhuman or super, Herculean tonight in order to keep you in the football game. You needed more from your running game. You needed more from your defense, and you just did not get it.
Yeah, and I think that the thing that was super apparent very early on in this game was just how important Denzel Perryman is for this defense and how good of a signing that was in the offseason. Hopefully, he can get back quickly, with Bijan Robinson coming on deck next week. But, specifically for this matchup, specifically for going against the freight train known as Derrick Henry, specifically in a game where you allow 3 4th-and-1 conversions.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that they, stop them every time if Denzel Perryman's out there.
But he shoots the gap better than most linebackers in the league.
The difference is he has that stopping power. He has a rare stopping power you don't see from linebackers. Like Derrick Henry was falling for 4 yards every single time he got the football. That doesn't happen when you get hit by Denzel Perryman. It's not that simple. The Chargers were the worst team. The better team won the football game.
Yeah.
But you saw how important that dude was. You saw how important Cam Hart was as well in different ways. But Denzel Perryman feels like he would have been a difference maker. And when you're talking about 3 short yardage situations that really set the tone for this game and could have given the Chargers free points in the first half, right? And also gotten them off the field in the second half. 2 different drives potentially ending that were in the middle of a 5 consecutive scoring drive run from this Ravens offense. I think it makes a difference, man. I truly think he makes a big difference in this one, especially in those short yardage situations, especially with how many missed tackles we saw from Derrick Henry. I mean, the one, I think it was 3rd and 1. Deion Henley has him for a loss.
Yeah,
he still has him for a loss.
Both of them, yeah.
Double stiff arm.
Yeah.
I mean, man, Derrick Henry's really good, man. You're not going to face him, thankfully, every week. You're not going to face another running back like him for the rest of the season. But the problems were there even when it wasn't Derrick Henry. And I think that's the concerning part. And I think, like I said, it just shows you how important Denzel Perryman is. Hopefully, he can get back because the sooner, the better. This Chargers defense needs him, even with a very improved linebacking core, even with Deion Henley playing as well as we've ever seen him. It wasn't enough tonight, and they really missed that veteran presence of Denzel Perryman. So hopefully he can get back. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. The good news is we can let it all out tomorrow because tomorrow is Buy or Sell Tuesday, getting into the biggest Charger storylines and overreaction. So give it to us. I'm sure overreactions are going to be flying left and right. Hit us up at Locked On LAC. Call into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924 to get your 30-second Chargers buy or sell in, or a fan mail show, whatever it is. You guys can hit us up, and we love getting your guys' calls in. But to make sure you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from, as well as finding the show on our Instagram at Locked On Chargers and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. Me and David also post the show every day to our individual personal accounts on Twitter. You can find me at Dan Talk Sports and David at Dro Talk SD. We all have to take a breath. It's a tough loss. A lot to play for this season. So thankful the Chargers have a real head coach that we're even talking about competitive football at this point in the season, because go back to last year, we weren't. Straight up, we weren't, right?
That's true.
They have a long ways to go. But this is year 1. They're building something. This team's going in the right direction. So what will they do this year? They're scrappy. They're a good team. They're not a great team yet, but we'll see if they can get there. But make sure you guys are back here tomorrow for Buy or Sell Tuesday. Until then, take it easy and go Bolts.